We know there are many choices in internet radio, and the staff and host of LA Talk Live would like to thank you for choosing the internet's hottest destination for the most eclectic sound and invigorating talk. This is LA Talk Live. We are more than just talk.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Joy in My House, inspirational reality radio show with a touch of recovery. A reality radio show where nothing is left unsaid.
And no one is insignificant who says it.
I'm joined here by my guest co-host, Paul Oebel. Welcome to the show.
Hey, my pleasure. Great to be here.
Thank you for coming on and guest co-hosting with me today.
Yeah, absolutely. Always an honor.
I want to thank everybody out there who's listening and viewing for being a part of the joy that we have in our house here on www.latalklive.com on Joy in My House. I want you to know that you can find us on Facebook /Joy in My House. You can also find us on Twitter /Joy in My House. And if you like the page, you receive up-to-date lineups of guests and information. Well, we had a great show last week with Kathy Winters.
Yeah.
Wow, she is an HIV educator and lives with HIV.
Lives with it, yeah. She has a phenomenal testimony.
It was very powerful.
Yeah, God has really brought her through a lot to give a lot.
Yes, because now she's giving back and educating.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, at least myself, I get resentful. I get hurt. I'm not giving back. I'm going to start taking. And she did just the opposite.
Yeah,
she started giving back to educate and
Yeah.
made some tours in China and
Travels
Africa.
all over the world, yeah. Yeah, she's getting ready to go to India.
That's right. She has
to
a big
do
project in India.
A lot of ministry work there. Yeah.
And I understand that also one of her projects in Africa just finished the building for education.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So-
she's involved with a lot, and she's really blessed by God. But you know what? She opens herself up for it, and all of us, we need just to open ourselves up for what God has for us. When we open ourselves up, then God just pours it in.
And I think that's so important because a lot of times as people, as human beings, we tend to want to hoard it. We tend to want to keep it, not share. Because I'm very possessive. I call everything mine. And I remember my master telling me when I went to speak about his father, our grandmaster, I said, oh, my grandmaster. He said, what do you mean mine? He's our grandmaster.
Mm-hmm.
And I do the same thing with my parents. I call them my mother to my sister. And my sister's like, what's our parents? So I have to learn also, like you said, to open up and let God pour it in.
We're actually going through a Bible. It's about just that. Nothing belongs to you. Mm-hmm. Nothing. All power comes from God. Everything that we have comes from God. Nothing belongs to us. And this last week, we were talking about gifts of the Spirit and how a lot of people say, I have the gift, I have the gift. You have nothing. It's what God has blessed you with and what God has put into your life. And nothing belongs to us. It's all about God.
And I think that's so powerful to say. You know, during my prayer time today, I wanted to kind of express that it's not anything that I did. It's not anything that I'm doing. It's really what's God putting into me, what he's pouring into me. He's using me as a vessel. And it's amazing that he would even use somebody like me. So I'm just grateful. I'm very grateful at this point in my life.
Well, you put yourself in the path. And that wants us on, and then let God take over.
Amen.
Right.
If you're tuning in with us, we want to thank you for being a part of the joy that we have in our house. Know that you can watch all of our archive messages here on www.latalklive.com. Just click on shows, click on Joy in My House, and watch all of our archive messages. I think we have over 120 different episodes for you guys to watch with amazing guests that are inspirational. They're talented. They're musicians who perform here, authors, psychologists, actors who have done amazing things in the movie industry and the showbiz industry and are now giving back. And if you're one of those people that feel that you want to engage, I want you to link up with us. I want you to find us on Twitter with any questions or comments. Our Instagram page is now up. I want you to link up with that and follow us. If you have any questions or comments, you can call us directly. The studio line is 323. If I can find that studio line real quick. It's actually on the bottom, 323-473-3100. It's at the bottom of your screen. With any questions or comments for myself, my guest co-host, or our in-studio guest today, because we have a great show lined up for you today with Dondre Whitfield.
Dondre Whitfield. Great guy.
If you don't know who he is, you need to. And if you don't know who he is, you're going to love him. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Joy in My House. I want you to stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Hey everybody, it's your man Sabir Bey back on your airwaves, inviting you to join us every Tuesday, 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on the Sabir Bey Show, discussing history, law, and hip-hop. Every Tuesday, 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, the Sabir Bey Show, exclusively on latalklive.com. You also can catch us on iTunes Radio and R&B, Live 365, Radio Flag, and now Stitcher Radio. Or watch us and listen directly at latalklive.com. Reality radio, handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.
Hi, this is Dr. Levi, your fitness doctor, making a personal house call, inviting you to join me Wednesday at 10 a.m. Pacific for my all-new show, The Dr. Levi Show. Join us as we discuss fitness, health, and well-being, including emotional and spiritual health. So don't forget to tune in to the Dr. Levi Show every Wednesday at 10 a.m. Pacific, exclusively on latalklive.com and the Talk Live Broadcast Network. You can also catch us on iTunes, Radio R&B, or watch us on Ustream.tv, or catch us on the Live 365 network, and now on Radio Flag and Stitcher Radio. Reality radio handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Joy in My House, inspirational reality radio show with a touch of recovery. I'm joined here by my guest co-host, Paul Oebel, and our in-studio guest, Dondre Whitfield. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
Now, from my understanding, this is not your first time on this network.
No, this is, I am now a seasoned veteran of LA Talk Live, and I'm just really thankful to be back, particularly on this day. I got a lot to share.
Good. Thank you for coming on Joy in My House and being a part of the joy that we have in our house here, Dondre. I always like to let our audience and viewers know how we met. We met through my board of directors, Paul Oebel, who sits on the board of directors of this show and is also my talent director and always finds amazing guests. And having had the opportunity to speak to you a little bit, you're one of those amazing guests.
Well, I'm humbled by that, but hopefully people will hear about why I could be amazing.
I got to tell you this. I meet a lot of people in my life, and Dondre was one of those guys. First of all, he's memorable, and one of the nicest guys. I met his wife. He has a beautiful wife, and I met somebody one time. I met quite a few celebrities, and I remember meeting one guy. I won't mention his name, but he used to play Wally on Leave It to Beaver. And I walked up and introduced myself to him, and he was like, "What do you want?"
Wow.
And I'm like, "Well, just introduce myself, say hi. What do you want? I don't have time for you." And I'm like, "Wow." So there are those people there, but Dondre he's very warm.
Well, yeah,
very
he's
friendly.
the opposite, very engaging.
Just immediately I said, "Okay, this guy is going to be a friend." So that's Dondre. Dondre's a great guy.
Well, I'm glad he came on the show, and having had the opportunity to speak to him a little bit, he has a lot to share. We like to let our audience and viewers know a little bit about ourselves, a little bit about our guests. That way, those of you who are listening out there can engage with us a little bit more. We're a transparent show. Just like other networks, you're able to say bad words and talk about crazy things, sex and all this. Well, this is a platform for us to also talk about God and talk about Jesus, which allows us to really open up ourselves, and it allows us to be vulnerable too. Because, I do have a Facebook fan page and I have a Facebook personal page, and then people start commenting. I work with models, and I like their pictures, and they tell me, "Oh, are you a born again Christian?" And I say, "Yes." I almost felt like I was being judged for supporting some of my friends that are very special people to me. Mm-hmm. It was very interesting to feel that. So this is a platform for us to share what God has done in our lives and continues to do without judgment. So for those of you who are listening out there and viewing, know that we're transparent here. We're sharing our hearts with you to hopefully have you engage with us, hopefully spark something in you that might allow you to be a little more transparent. Dondre, we're going to talk a little bit about your family of origin. You grew up in Brooklyn, New York. Tell us a little bit about how it was growing up in the BK.
Well, I mean, there's no shortage of stories that you have about growing up in a place that's so eclectic, number one, and then can be so devastatingly violent on the other hand. I mean, I saw so many things growing up that I really wouldn't change because they're a part of my testimony.
Sure.
But at the same time, there's certain things that absolutely rob me of my own childhood. And I think it's interesting because in talking about this, in talking about purpose on my life as a father, I don't think that I would have been as powerful a father had I not had the experiences that I had growing up in Brooklyn, particularly without my own father.
Wow.
And it's interesting when we're really connected to our purpose. We really do. That's sort of like the GPS of our life.
Yes, it is.
When Paul talked about having that experience with that actor, I would dare say that he just does not know what his purpose here is.
Right.
And I often say that a boy feels like he's here to be served, and a man knows that he's here to be of service.
Wow.
And so the reason why Paul and I had the experience that we had when we first met was because I know that I'm not here to serve myself. I know that I'm here to serve other people. And so you never know how important your words or even your smile or your light is when you come in contact with someone.
That's right.
That's what they need at that particular time. And unfortunately, those that are not in contact with their purpose, you get a completely different experience with them. And have you feel void of something rather than be lifted by having that experience with
Very
them.
powerful.
So growing up in Brooklyn made me see so many different things that made me understand that, wow, this life really is. I understood the people who thought it was just about them and not about themselves and not about the people around them.
Right.
And so growing up in that environment where you see at 7 years old, the first person that you ever see get murdered.
Wow.
You're never supposed to see anyone get murdered.
Right, exactly.
But when you see the first one at 7, that does something to you. And
Yeah, like you
thankfully-
said, it robs you of your childhood, your
Absolutely.
innocence. It takes that away.
Absolutely. And thankfully, being a discipled man now, I really am so thankful to have God restore those things that were taken from me during those really unpleasant experiences.
Wow, amen.
Yeah, I just recently talked to somebody, and it's those experiences that give us our gifts.
Yeah.
God looks at you, looks at your life, and says, "Okay, let me. What's happening in this life? I can use this. I can use that. I can use this." And this is what is very encouraging to hear. That is when we allow the negative things that happen in our life. First of all, we overcome them.
Yeah.
And then we allow God to come into our lives and use those things, and it's just a phenomenal thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
I did want to ask, did you grow up with any siblings? Did you have any brothers?
I have 2 younger brothers, but it was interesting because I have my youngest brother by 10 years and my middle brother by 9 years. So
Wow,
I
so
kind of
big
grew
gap.
up like the big brother uncle.
Yeah.
So, their experiences in Brooklyn were unlike mine because, I grew up with, and this was like a half row ago. I had curly hair and light skin. In my neighborhood, that's an invitation to a fight every day.
Right.
So I had to fight a lot. And I don't care how terrible you think someone is, no one really grows up wanting to fight.
Right.
That is a learned behavior. And
Yes, it is.
that's a behavior that gets put on you, and then now once you learn that muscle, and just like any other muscle, you either get that strengthened or it gets completely taken away from you. And in growing up in that environment, I had to strengthen that muscle because I wouldn't have survived
You had
otherwise.
to survive. It was a survival tactic.
Absolutely.
Well, I wanted to talk about any other challenges or struggles you endured that really that were pinnacle in your life that maybe did take you a notch down or two, because there's so much that goes on, especially growing up in that difficult environment.
Yeah.
A lot happens, but let's talk about some of the main ones that really maybe almost put you astray.
Well, I can't even say almost put me astray. They put me astray.
I allowed you to say that.
We grew up in an environment where you learn to overindulge yourself, because again, what you're being taught is to again, it's a very a boyish behavior, because not very many of us in that environment where we don't have our fathers to teach us how to be a man. In order for you to truly be a man, you have to complete your boyhood.
True.
In order to begin your manhood, you have to complete your boyhood.
Absolutely.
And that's why you see so many men running around and indulging themselves and engaging in behavior that usually you see boys engage in.
And then not be responsible or accountable for the consequences of their behavior, which is, for me, it was pregnancy. My children got pregnant and I didn't step up to their mothers. I had these great kids and I engaged with my children and spent a lot of time with them, but I wasn't mature enough or had the tools to be a husband.
Absolutely.
To be even, I would even say even a partner.
Absolutely. And tools are, our skill set as men, and that's not taking any importance away from any woman, because as we all know, without our women, our households and our communities would be in deep trouble without them.
Wouldn't be complete at all.
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
But I would dare say, and if you really get any real woman who hears this, she will agree also. Without a man, and you can see it, it's completely evident in the young men who are running around killing each other. They're running around killing each other because they're void of real, responsible men who've completed their boyhood and who are now going to pass along the gifts, the skill sets that are absolutely vital to be a contributing man in our society and in our communities. Sure. Without those things, we're in trouble, and you see them every single day.
Absolutely.
I brought into my own household with my wife and my kids the skill set of the street. And I had to learn a completely different skill set, because the skill set that I got or that I acquired in the street were getting me in trouble in my house.
Sure, absolutely.
Those tools were not the tools you needed to raise a household.
No,
it was a tools.
They're
for
great
survival.
tools. They're great tools for tearing up a household.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about some of that, the struggles and challenges you endured throughout your childhood, your upbringing, especially because you have an amazing career. You have a lot of accolades. But I wanted to touch right before that, your high school, your junior high and high school. How was that growing up?
It's really interesting because I get so full in thinking about all of the times that God interceded on my behalf.
We talked about that
today.
today.
We talk about that, man. And really, because first of all, I'm not that smart.
I agree. I'm not that smart either.
Of us.
Yeah. So at the times where I was completely about to run into the brick wall of life, God said, hold on one second. And then he sent powerful conduits at the right times. So there was one in elementary school. Her name was Miss Jackson, who was involved in the school plays. And she came to me at a very pivotal time in my life where she said, I want you to come and be in my play. Now, again, I just told you I grew up in Brooklyn. Now, being in a school play is the equivalent of being in the Glee Club. You don't want to do that. That's the last thing you want to do.
That says beat me up all over it.
That says beat me until you can't beat me anymore.
Until your arms get tired of beating me.
Yeah. Until you get bored. And then, it took me getting in trouble and getting out of line during a fire drill. When you're in elementary school, fire drills are really important. Like, they're super serious. And I was playing with a quarter in my pocket. I'll never forget this because I was going to use that quarter to play a video game after school. So I was playing with this quarter, and I took it out, and the quarter dropped down and it rolled to the other side of the hallway.
Oh.
So you needed to go get that quarter.
I'm not leaving that quarter. I'm sorry. I'm not leaving that quarter there. So I step out of line to go pick up that quarter, and I got in trouble. And I was supposed to serve detention for a week for stepping out of line in a fire drill. Miss Jackson finds out. She comes to me and she said, well, you got two choices. You can either serve detention for a week or come be in my play. Now, I'm not stupid, and I never have been stupid. And I got street smarts, right? So
Roped you in.
So she knew you were being hustled.
Oh yeah. But here again, now here's the street hustle in me already at that age. I'm gonna kill two birds with one stone. I'm gonna tell this lady that I'm gonna be in her school play, not have to serve detention, and then I'll get myself kicked out of the play.
Wow.
I was smart. I knew what I was doing. But God knew better. God knew that as soon as I got on that stage,
Right.
wow, all the things that I got in trouble for in school, and I was a great student. I was always very smart. I got good grades. All of my report cards said this: Dondre is a phenomenal student. However,
that's the big one.
those are all of my report cards because I would always get my work done sooner than anyone else. And, as you know, when you give a child too much time on their hands,
They get in trouble.
you're asking for trouble.
Mm-hmm.
Paul's
so-
wife just told me that today.
Yeah.
She's like, good
Yeah.
that they have you running around
Totally.
because you have a little bit of free time. You're going to get in trouble.
And that's what was getting me in trouble. And so now, once I got on stage, all the things that worked against me in class were now working for me on stage.
That's right.
And so I had the proper venue to be able to channel all this great creative energy.
And I talk about that a lot when I train students, that it's a tool that they use to channel their aggression or explore their personality.
Yes.
Whether they're punching, kicking, jumping, whatever it is that they're doing, it's a tool, it's an avenue.
Absolutely.
So this platform for you, this avenue was exactly, God knew it was exactly what you needed.
Absolutely. If I didn't have it, I definitely would have gotten myself in trouble that I may have not have ever been able to recover from.
Right.
But it was powerful because then, when I moved on to junior high school, he gave me another one. Mrs. Gonzalez, who to this day we still speak. I still speak to all of my teachers, by the way.
Wow.
That's good.
And her husband was a guidance counselor in my school. She encouraged me to audition for the High School for the Performing Arts in New York. And when I found out the odds of making the school, I took it off my application.
Wow.
Her husband looked and saw that I
That
took
took
it
it
off. He went and told his wife, who was my English and drama teacher, and she pulled me, I'll never forget this, by the ear. It sounds like a movie. She pulled me out of my biology class by the ear.
Ooh.
Wow.
Brought me downstairs and made me
Good.
put it back on my application. Thank God, because I actually auditioned for the school and got accepted.
How God uses these people in your life
Absolutely.
to direct you.
Absolutely. And then I got to Performing Arts High School. The first teacher in my life who happened to be Caucasian that I truly loved and respected, because in my neighborhoods, we didn't have great relationships with Caucasian people. There were teachers who were really coming in to get a check,
Right.
who really truly didn't care about whether we learned or didn't. I actually had a teacher say to me one day, he said, I get paid whether you learn or not.
Oh.
Wow.
And for a child, man, that's a powerful thing to hear.
Right.
Because you really do get to hear that no one really
No one
cares.
cares.
Right.
Yeah.
And when you're an educator, your responsibility
Yes.
is to encourage, to
Yes.
affirm, and
Yes.
to build. That's
Yes.
it. It doesn't matter if it's through math,
They did
English.
the opposite.
They
They
were breaking,
discouraged.
Yeah, they were breaking down.
And then to have, relationships with police officers that we had, which, we just saw them beating up those who we loved and who we cared about.
Yeah.
And, when you're a kid, you don't say, well, they did something wrong, and so they were supposed to be detained because they broke the law.
Right. You're
All you see is
you're seeing it from a distance,
Ye-
and you can come to your own conclusion.
completely,
Yeah.
and you see the side where you go, okay, I do understand that they were supposed to be arrested, but I don't understand the side that was unnecessary, which was the beating.
Yeah, when they see it overdone.
Right.
When it's
right.
excessive, it's clear to anybody.
Absolutely.
Adult, child, doesn't matter what race.
Absolutely.
When it's excessive, it's excessive.
So my teacher, Mr. Abeson, in performing arts, was actually sent to me by God to get me to understand, hey, listen, your brother is never going to be your brother simply because of color. Mm-hmm. Your brother is going to be your brother.
That's a profound statement.
Absolutely. Your brother is going to be your brother based on the love that you get shown. And whether you reciprocate it or not.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
That was the first connection. That made me, to this day, it still brings tears to my eyes because that literally changed my life.
Wow.
It changed my life.
Gave you an epiphany.
Absolutely. And again,
that message needs to be so broad.
Man,
everywhere.
that thing everybody needs to hear that.
Yeah.
Because I got duped into feeling like every person who looked like me, I thought that they were my brother, and they weren't. Because your brother is never going to bring you poison.
Right.
But
True.
so many do.
True.
And so when I got delivered those powerful teachers in my life, they literally not only changed my life, but they directed my life. Now, being a disciple, I understand that he literally placed them to be the forks in the road of my life.
Well, let's talk about that, your faith.
Yeah.
Where was your faith at this time? Were you a church-going family when you were young? Where's your faith at this time?
Yes and no. My grandmother, who God rest her soul, she always said to me, you can do whatever you want. You know why? And I'd always say, why? And she said, because God said so. Mm-hmm. And when you grow up in the hood, God doesn't have a whole lot of space in there when you're a young man and you're fighting the street, because you immediately you're doubting Thomas.
Right.
Right.
You're doubting
That's right.
Thomas.
That's right.
You're going, listen, if God is so
Big and so strong.
Absolutely.
How is he allowing me to go through what I'm going
It
through?
affects that inner child.
why?
Yeah, absolutely.
Why? So constantly you're questioning why. Why, God? And if you really are this, then why would you let that happen?
Right.
Why would you let me suffer like this? Why would you have me walk in the street with sneakers that have holes in the bottom and I can literally feel the pavement?
Mm-hmm.
Why would you do that?
Oh, been there, done that.
Man. So you grow up doubting Thomas.
Yeah.
So my faith was supremely challenged throughout my adolescence.
Your adolescence.
But again, I wouldn't change a single solitary moment because, again, I have a profound testimony because of it.
And you call yourself a disciple, and I love that you call yourself a disciple because
absolutely.
we're always in a place to be taught.
Yes.
Even me, I'm like old, and I consider myself a disciple and always have been because you always put yourself in that place to learn.
Yes.
Well, I concur because as a martial arts master, I always tell my students, especially our first lesson, I'm a student first. If I don't submit to my master, to my Lord, then how can I expect you to submit to me and what I have to offer you?
I'm glad you used that word submit because for us as men, that is a supremely tough thing to embrace. Because we as men, we're warriors.
That's right.
Right? We go out, we get the kill, we bring it
hunt,
back.
we bring
right?
it right.
That's
We're
what
providers.
we are. God designed us that way. Right? So the word submit now means something feeble. It's a weakness.
Right, absolutely.
Right?
You have
When
to-
actually it's the polar opposite of that.
It gives you
Absolutely.
strength.
Right.
It's the opposite of that. Any man who truly understands that that submission is a godly thing knows that his submission, the strength of his warrior, lies in how well
He
and how
submits.
powerfully he submits.
Absolutely.
That's right.
Especially when you know who God is.
That's right.
When you recognize that, there's no issue about submitting because
None at all.
If I submit into this, I know I'm going to become a mighty warrior. It's very powerful.
Without a doubt.
Well, we segued just a little bit, but I wanted to touch on how was your family supportive of you going and getting accepted to this amazing acting school?
Wow, you know,
Now, you didn't have a father at this time, right?
my father was like in and out of my life, and the kinds of the times that I did get to experience my father were not great times. You know, from my dad actually kidnapped me at one point.
Wow.
You know, he was in a really bad space, and he did some really terrible things. He was in and out of jail my entire life. Went to jail for murder, and I mean, he was really a misguided soul that was doing some misguided things.
Yeah.
And powerfully, we reconnected last year
Wow.
because of my daughter.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna love this one. Woo! Wow.
Yeah.
I wish I didn't have
Here
on
comes
long
another
sleeves so
lesson.
you could see these goosebumps. So one day I'm sitting at home, and my daughter comes downstairs and says, "Dad, do you know where your father is?"
Wow.
It'll grab the heart of yours.
Man. And I always did, because I still have guys that are in the street that are still, back in Brooklyn. I'm still connected, as we say.
Right?
And so I knew where my father was. And so I don't believe I don't lie to my children. So I said, "Yeah, I do." And she said, "Are you ever going to see him again?"
Oh.
I said, "Maybe." She said, And it was so, I could feel it. I could
Oh,
feel
yeah,
it. I could
absolutely.
feel it. She wasn't allowing me to escape it.
Right.
Yeah.
She was making
She
you
was
confront
making me
it.
deal with this. And I knew that God had sent her.
Yeah.
Yep. God was using her right
Because
then and there.
because God knew that I would be able to push my wife. If my
If
wife
your
had
wife
come,
had said
Oh,
it,
yeah, absolutely.
Shut
Go
it
away,
down.
leave me alone.
shut that down immediately. First of all, sweetheart, listen, you don't know anything about this. This is really inappropriate right now.
Right.
You already know. You know what? We don't need to have this conversation ever again. And I said, respectfully, let's not have it again.
Right.
Right. So I could absolutely push my wife away, but God knew that the messenger in my daughter was not one that I was going to be able to push away.
Because you have to look at your relationship with your daughter.
Absolutely.
And your daughter's going to look at the relationship you have with your father.
Listen,
Ouch, ouch.
she said to me, it was literally like, and I was cornered. And every time I answered, she literally took a moment to let me sit in my answer. So she said, "Dad, is that my grandfather?"
yes.
I'm sitting there now. I said, "Yeah." She said, and every time I answered, she took it in and she said,
Wow.
and let me sit in that. And finally, she said, "Am I ever gonna meet him?"
Yeah. That's the
Yeah.
clincher.
Man, listen. When I say knocked down, you could have. I mean,
Could have used
I
a
couldn't
baseball
move.
bat.
Yeah, without a
Right,
doubt.
right.
2 months later, I was going back east to witness my goddaughter's graduation in Connecticut, and I drove to Brooklyn, and I reconnected with my father, and I got back home after that connection, and it turns out, he had turned his life over to God,
Wow.
Amen.
and here we were exchanging scriptures with each other, and I got back home. And I said to my daughter, I said, "Parker, do you remember when I told you that you don't need to be an adult to be a leader?" And she said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, you led your father."
Wow.
I said, "Were it not for you, I don't think I would have reached out to my dad.
Wow. Wow.
And I want to thank you."
That's
And it
awesome.
was the most powerful moment
Absolutely.
that we've ever had with each other, because
What a great
she
bonding
began crying, which of course made me cry, and she had so much pride in knowing that she did this powerful thing for her father, who's the most powerful man that she knows.
That she knows, yeah, you're her God.
It's a phenomenal time in life, and all of that was that was all God.
Yeah. So when you got accepted into school, your father wasn't around.
He was not around
until later.
And
So
and again,
there was no fatherly figure to say, "Son, go for it."
at all. And my mom she was encouraging about my acting until I graduated from performing arts high school, and it was really about whether I was going to do this for the rest of my life, as a living.
Right.
Because she was being a mom. She's like, okay, so let's go to college.
Right.
And let's
get
get
a
a job.
career so you can get a job, right?
Acting is not something you do.
It's
That's
not a
something
job.
that you play with in school, but
now let's go get real.
let's go get a job.
Yeah.
And again, my grandmother was the one she was the maverick of the family. She moved the family from North Carolina to Brooklyn. Who does that? You
Right.
got to have a
Yeah,
man. You got to have.
some
you know-
gold to
yeah.
do that. Yeah, that's some gold to do
I don't
that.
want to say it on air, but you got to have them. And my grandmother had a lot of them. And she was the one that always encouraged me, and she would always say, because God said so.
Wow, that's right.
And my mom, she served her purpose. Her purpose was to make sure that I always knew that, listen, you got to be diligent about your pursuit, because if you don't, if this doesn't work out, there can be trouble.
Right. Well, I wanted to touch on, because I want to speed it up just a little bit, your first acting gig, because you were working on The Cosby Show.
Yeah, that was my first job.
Let's
Like,
talk.
who does that?
Right.
Like, that was so. I was still living in Brooklyn at the time. I can't even describe to you what it's like to be on the most watched television show, well, in history now, and to live in the hood.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's crazy.
What a dichotomy. And that's got to be such a conflict
To
for you
have a
mentally.
dressing room and then to literally be ducking and dodging bullets when you go home.
Wow.
I was going, I'd be on the train and standing next to somebody, and they say, "Hey, aren't you you're that guy?" I mean, that was so crazy. To have fame before you have money
Right.
is painful because you got nowhere to hide.
Now, was
That's
there
right.
ever a point, or did you ever have a point where you said, "I don't want to go home anymore"?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I want
There was I was at that point. Some people say in the street, if we have an expression called keeping it real.
Right.
We're gonna
Right.
keep it real.
course.
Well, let me tell you something. If you talk to anybody in the hood and you really keep it real, nobody wants to be in the hood.
Right.
It's not about leaving your people. It's about leaving a mentality.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Some people who are in the hood have a great mentality. They want to graduate their people. And there's a few that are the pariah that are feeding off of that.
That's right.
And you don't want to be there.
Right.
You just don't. I don't want my children to be subjected to the pariah.
Right.
Because you hear people go, "Oh my gosh, that's so ghetto. That's so ghetto." Ghetto is not a mentality. It's a location.
It's a circumstance.
That's
true.
a location.
true.
That's not a mentality.
Right.
Okay? So if you ever hear anybody use that expression to describe someone's wretchedness, correct them, because that's a location. That's not a mentality. So I never wanted to be around gunfire and fighting. It's interesting because when I learned how to box, and even through my Krav Maga career, once I learned how to really fight, I
You
never
didn't have
wanted
to.
to fight.
You didn't have to. Well, that's the thing about a martial
Because
artist.
that's a
different.
discipline.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to touch on this because there's a couple things that I wanted to go through, but I want you to spend more time on this. I'm going to go through your accolades because you have a long list. You're a 3-time Emmy Award nominee. You've appeared on the Jamie Foxx show. Martin, Girlfriends, your starring role was Between Brothers on All My Children, Make It or Break It. You've been on CIS Miami, NYPD Blue, X-Files, Grey's Anatomy. Your movie was Two Can Play at That Game, Mr. 300. But I wanted to touch on something that you did for yourself that has impacted your family and everybody else.
And I know him.
Your marathon run. Before we go to commercial break, I want to touch on this because I think this is very profound. We had an opportunity to speak.
Powerful
and
stuff.
You ran the LA Marathon.
Yeah.
You look very young. You look young, you look healthy,
35,
you look well.
36, something like that.
I wish.
But you said that you're a little more mature,
Yeah.
but yet you run this race of endurance.
Yeah.
What was that experience like?
Well, first of all, I am no spring chicken. I am 45 years old. I will be 46 in
I
May.
wanted to get into the same club with you. You just blew it, man. You just blew it.
But this was my first marathon. And interestingly enough, I ran it for a great organization called PS Arts. And it's an organization that brings art education to underserved and underprivileged children in public schools and communities. And really, it was like running for myself. If I didn't have the benefit of arts education in my own life, God only knows what would have happened to me. And so for me, it was like giving back to myself.
Wow.
And my wife and I are friends with the executive director, Kristen Paglia, who she's the executive director for PS Arts. And we were out to dinner with them one night, her and her husband, Jamie. And Jamie leaned over to me and said, would you be interested in running a marathon, for the charity? And of course, we always do work with them. And I said, of course. Here's the thing. I got
2-mile marathon.
Exactly because the cavalier nature of this question made me think that it was a 5K
Right.
or a 10K, right?
Even maybe 50K.
Yeah, because again, remember he said, "Would you like to run a marathon?"
he didn't
Not
say
the marathon.
Yeah.
The LA Marathon is the marathon.
That's
I didn't realize until 2 weeks later that he was talking about the LA Marathon.
Yeah.
Now, by that time, the organization, the word is out now.
Right.
Donjay's going to run the marathon.
Yeah.
Now, secretly, here's how God works. Watch this. Secretly, running a marathon has always been a bucket list item for me.
Wow.
Now, at this time in my life, with a wife,
You have
with
a strange bucket list, buddy.
I do have a strange bucket list. So with a wife, 2 children, I knew that there was no way I was going to put this on my own. I would never have gotten to this.
Right.
But in realizing the great purpose that PS Arts serves and knowing how important arts education was for me in my life, there was no way that I couldn't run this marathon. And so God knew that if he set it up this way, that I would get to it.
Right.
It was such a powerful, powerful thing. And when I finally ran it last year, and you can see it was the 30th edition.
Last week.
Last week.
Last week, yeah.
So this year was the 30th edition of the marathon. And so this was the medal that we got for completing the marathon. And it was powerful because I knew that running this marathon, when I crossed the finish line, there was going to be a better version of myself waiting. So I was so anxious to get started. At around mile 15, I began feeling cramps in my, because last week we had record-breaking heat.
Mm-hmm.
So around mile 15, I could feel these cramps in my hamstring.
Quads, your hamstrings,
my hamstring.
your calves.
So at around mile 18, it had traveled from my right hamstring to my left hamstring, to my left calf, to my right calf, finally to my right quad.
Paralyzed.
And so from mile 18 to mile 22, I was literally on the verge of completely shutting down. And I kept having powerful conversation with God, and I said, God, I know everything happens for a reason. I don't believe in coincidences.
Right.
Everything happens for a reason. God is the architect, so everything that happens to you is designed for your purpose.
Right.
I said, God, what is this? Just please make it plain for me. I'm so prepared. You know, I'm doing this for these great children that PS Arts helps to, you know, facilitate these things for, you know, and so every mile is for them, but crossing the finish line is for my own children.
Absolutely.
So what is this about? What is this? Just make it plain for me. And I could feel God's download. Listen, you're going to be able to run just like life. You're going to be able to run the first 18 miles of your life on your own merits.
That's right.
On your own strength.
Will, on your own will.
But from mile 22 to mile 26.2, you're going to need me.
Oh,
That's great.
And you're not going to be able to do it without me. I said, got it. Got it. Just free up my legs. I will give you the glory when I cross the finish line.
Amen.
Just give me my legs again. Please. I got it. I got it. And once I got that permission, I understood this. Even when God gives you permission, even when God gives you his endorsement, you still got to dig. Because from mile 22 to mile 26.2, I was grinding.
Wow.
Yeah.
Grinding. So even when you get endorsed, even when he blesses you with it, you still got to dig.
Wow. Great lesson.
It was an awesome
Great
lesson.
Well, I want to say congratulations
lesson.
for accomplishing and getting that medal.
Thank you.
Yay.
Thank you.
We're going to go to a quick commercial break. When we come back, Dondre is going to talk about his new book and his mentoring program you're not going to want to miss. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Joy in My House. I want you to stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Ro Williams, and I would like to invite you to join GospelRhythms.com every Sunday at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for our show, GospelRhythms.com Talk Live Radio. Join us as we celebrate Christians around the world in all genres of entertainment, as well as highlight interest stories on men and women who are making a difference and impacting their community. So don't forget to tune in to GospelRhythms.com Talk Live Radio exclusively on LATalkLive.com. You can also catch us on iTunes under R&B or watch us live on Ustream TV. We are reality radio handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is GospelRhythms.com Talk Live Radio on LATalkLive.com. We're more than just talk. We're heaven's party here on earth.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Joy in My House, inspirational reality radio show with a touch of recovery, a reality radio show where nothing is left unsaid.
And anyone who says it is not significant, or is significant, is insignificant.
And anyone who
I
says
mess
it
up
is
on
not
that
significant.
line every time. I'm sorry, Lolita.
I'm joined here by my guest co-host, Paul Oebel, and our in-studio guest, Dondre. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you, sir.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
When we ended the commercial break, the last segment, we were talking about you finishing the marathon.
Yeah.
But I wanted to touch on
testimony.
something that you mentioned earlier, and it was purpose.
Yeah.
Finding your purpose, and at the age of 43.
Yeah. It's kind of
Find your
scary.
purpose.
Yeah, it's a little, actually, it was great and it was awful at the same time. Because I always thought that my purpose was my acting.
Your
And,
career.
Yeah, that's my career.
And most people, they believe that.
Absolutely.
Their job is their purpose.
Oh,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. And
It's amazing how many people believe that.
yeah. And my wife and I actually got invited to do a panel, for the Merge Summit, and it was designed to get people to understand, people who are the summit merges faith with entertainment. And so we were supposed to do this marriage panel with two other great and powerful couples. Devon Franklin,
Yes.
who is a great friend of mine, who wrote a powerful book that it just really gets you in touch with knowing what your life is, with God, and his wife Megan Good, and with Angela Bassett and her husband Courtney B. Vance.
Yes.
And so we were on this panel with these other two powerful couples, and we were sitting. They had us sitting in the middle. We were the couple in the middle. And
You
again,
felt the pressure.
Yeah, I know that there is no there are no coincidences.
Right.
And so I was sitting there and I was going, okay, what is the purpose in this, God? Like, I think that we should be somewhere on the outside. Why are we in the middle? And so I was sitting there and I didn't get a clear download on it. But as we began to engage in this panel, I could feel it. And the brother who was moderating the panel was a powerful motivational speaker himself, Hassani Pettiford, who's become a great friend of mine, and who was absolutely another one of those conduits that was sent to me to deliver me a powerful message. And so we do this panel, and after the panel, he said, "How long have you been a motivational speaker?" And I said, what? And I said, tomorrow. I said, I am not a motivational speaker. He goes, oh no, yes you are.
Wow.
And I sat there with that for a second, and I was like, wow, what is this about? He said, can we stay in touch? I said, of course. And we began speaking, and every single day he just spoke life into my motivational, inspirational speaking career.
Wow.
And I really, I got it. And here's what's so interesting. My great-grandmother, Sadie, always said when I was a kid, in our household, in black households, we're infamous for telling our kids to shut up. Making too much noise. Shut up, boy! Boy, shut up! You
never met my dad. Shut up, boy.
You're supposed to be seen and not heard.
Yeah.
Right.
My great grandmother Sadie would never let anyone tell me to shut up.
Wow.
And she said to everyone, "This boy is going to speak to millions of people one day."
Wow.
Now here's what's interesting. I had always heard this story, and I thought that she was talking about my acting career. And when this came, it hit me like a ton of bricks.
It's confirmation.
I said, oh, Lord, that's what she was talking about. Because this has absolutely changed my life.
It's amazing how you carried that all through your life.
Wow.
From a child.
Like I couldn't even, it crystallized my entire life.
Right.
And so the book that I'm writing now, called Uncomfortable, The Gateway to Growth.
Wow.
Because,
It's even a great name.
oh man, the book is designed to get people, I want people to fall in love with being uncomfortable. Because when you're uncomfortable, that's when you're at the space where you're able to grow.
Yeah.
When you're in a space of being comfortable, there's no growth in that.
Yeah.
Right.
You ever hear a story about a mom and a dad who's talking about their son who's living in their basement, and they're going, we just can't get him to, he just doesn't want to get to this space in his manhood, and we just can't get him to, because he's too comfortable.
That's right.
In nature, when a bird has, her babies, and the babies are in the nest, she comes and she feeds them, and every day she looks over their wings.
Yep.
And then she examines their wings, and when the time is right,
She pushes them out.
Comfort.
the mother pushes them out of that nest,
Yeah.
Out of that comfort zone.
right? Guess what happens? They fly.
That's right.
Fly,
They're
grow.
growing,
Absolutely.
right? We don't do that. We're the only species that literally just refuses to do that. But that is absolutely your moment of growth, when you're in that space where you're uncomfortable. And so this book is purposely designed to get everyone to begin to fall in love with being uncomfortable. This year, it literally is all I'm doing. Everything that I'm doing this year is specifically designed to get me to be uncomfortable all the time. The marathon was specifically designed for me to be uncomfortable. I never ran a marathon ever in my life, but it grew me exponentially. My comedy show that I have every Thursday night at Haha Cafe in North Hollywood. I do stand-up comedy, but it's one thing for you to do 15 minutes of stand-up and then leave, but it's another for you to stay and be the host and be, in charge of having the audience be at a particular space so that they can receive more comedians. So everything that I'm doing this year is specifically designed to get me to be uncomfortable so I can be in a constant state of growth.
How'd you get in comedy? Somebody walk up and you say, "You have a face for comedy."
Yes. I've always being on the Cosby Show was one of the greatest experiences of my life. And I didn't understand that I was under the tutelage at that time of one of the greatest comedic minds in the history of comedy.
Till this day.
Absolutely.
And I didn't realize that some of what he has in terms of his storytelling was rubbing off on me. And my comedy is that.
Wow.
It's storytelling. And I never wanted to get involved in stand-up comedy because I respect it as a craft and as an art. And but I didn't realize that a lot of what I was doing in my life was stand-up comedy. And my stand-up comedian friends kept telling me daily, they were going, "When
Are you gonna go?
are you gonna get on stage?"
Yeah.
And finally on a dare, I got on stage and it was like, wow. It was like that moment I had in elementary school when Miss Jackson put me on stage.
Wow.
And to this day, it
Isn't it funny
feeds
how?
me.
Isn't it funny how that as we walk our adult life,
Yes.
we always jump back to that inner child
Yes.
and what things we
Yes.
were. It's just
First
great.
of all, we're the sum total of all of our experiences.
Absolutely.
And all of the things that were damaged in your childhood, we're simply looking to mend
them.
those things.
Well, before we go, because we are getting close to the conclusion of our show today, I wanted to touch on your mentorship program.
Oh.
Because you are now giving back immensely through this program. Let's talk about the Student African American Brotherhood.
Yes. SAB is a great organization that has over 250 chapters all over the country. It's designed to enhance education for African American and Latino students in high school, colleges, and universities. And I got asked to by Dr. Tyrone Bledsoe, who founded the organization. I got asked to be the national spokesperson, and they couldn't have had a better spokesperson because I am African American and Latino. My father was Latino.
Wow.
And so I hear the voice of young men of color who really deserve to have the best that education has to offer at their disposal, and simply don't because they don't have a large enough voice. And so I have been appointed to help fill that void. And this week we actually have our national conference in Dearborn, Michigan, and I'm going to be delivering the keynote. And I feel I'm so grateful to be in this position, and I'm so excited for them to receive the message that I have to give them. But I feel sorry for them because I'm gonna set them on fire.
Well, the show is coming to a close. Dondre, I want to thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
No, amazing.
Thank you for having
But
me.
we like to ask this of all of our guests. The name of the show is Joy in My House, the
Yeah.
joy that we have in the midst of our challenges, our struggles, but also in the midst of our praise. What does joy in my house mean to you, Dondre, in today's day and age?
And we have about, what, a half a minute left?
Right. Joy in
Take your time.
Listen, joy in my house means having God at the helm of my life, and having my family, my beautiful and loving wife, and my beautiful and loving kids. That's joy in my house.
Yes.
Amen.
And they are beautiful.
And I want to give a
Met 'em
shout
all.
out to Sally.
Yes.
I
Yep.
know that she was going to be
She's
a guest.
gonna be
on the
here.
show, but
She's
Dondre
gonna be
came in
here.
instead.
Yes.
She's coming.
Yeah, she had to do a shoot for her show today. She was actually initially scheduled to be the first guest in our house, but I think again, all things are purposeful.
That's
Absolutely.
right.
And I was
I'm
supposed
glad
to be
you
here.
were.
Yeah,
Yes, you were.
absolutely.
Dondre, thank you for coming on the show. Ladies
Thank
and
you.
gentlemen, this is Joe in my house. I want you to catch us live every Sunday here at noon. I want to thank Paul Oebel for sitting
My
in
pleasure.
as my guest co-host.
Thank you.
My producer, Van Eric. Your beautiful wife, Priscilla, for coming out and supporting.
Hey.
This is Joe in my house, ladies and gentlemen. Catch us live Sunday here every Sunday at noon. Next week, we have Mally Nicole. She'll be talking about her new inspirational book, Finish First, Interactive Guide to Success for Our Youth. This is Joy in my house, ladies and gentlemen. You guys have a blessed day, and we'll catch you next Sunday live here at noon.
Where did the sweetness go?